Hi, who are you? What's your name? What do you do?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tricia Gellman. I'm the CMO at Box.
And you gave a great presentation today at the AI Marketing Conference. So what did you talk about?
I spoke about the importance of bringing AI and content together, especially using your unstructured data to help you drive overall business productivity and efficiency.
You started off by saying that don't come in saying AI will replace workers. How can workers work with AI? Then you started talking about AI agents. Can you explain that setup? Because I think a lot of people worry about the former and not about how to increase productivity with agents.
I think our perspective at Box is that obviously there are some roles that are very repetitive that you could probably do better with agents, but the goal would be is to reduce that repetitive nature of a job so that people can move to the more strategic work. And what we see is that the companies that are having the most productivity gains are the people that are training their employees how to delegate work to agents, how to identify repeatable tasks that can be taken by agents so that their employees can actually up level their skill and go to do more strategic things like relationship building and things that are human to human, for example.
And you mentioned a survey that I don't know whether you took or you're quoting.
Yeah, we did it ourselves.
Okay, and talked about how there's a lot of excitement about AI, people planning to use AI. Can you talk a little bit about the survey and what were some of the results? And then how can companies prepare? I mean, there's obviously enthusiasm and then there's preparation. So what do you recommend companies do to prepare?
So back in May and June, which feels like decades ago at this point, it's now November, we had a question of, is this all hype, or what are IT leaders really thinking is going on with AI and what are they doing themselves? And we went out and we did a global survey of 1,300 IT leaders across small business all the way up to enterprise. And we found that 90% of leaders said that in the next year, they plan to triple the amount of money that they're spending on AI technology. And in my career, which is over 25 years, I've never worked in a company or been a part of a movement where everybody basically is saying, this is so important, we have to do it, and we have to do it now. And even back at that point, we saw that there were 41% of companies already using agentic workflow with autonomous activity, which means that they've built multiple agents. The agents work together. They probably move across departments, and the humans just say, go do your work. We'll check it, but they don't have to do it. So that's where you get that freedom for the humans to go and do more strategic things.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the importance of security. A lot of people, especially enterprise customers, worry, hey, I don't want to use some public LLM and put my sensitive data on there, and I don't want workers necessarily to do that.
Right.
And then you mentioned how Box is providing some type of solution. At a high level, what is the approach to that? Is it some kind of a RAG system or embedding all of your unstructured data into your own system so you could run secure LLMs, or how do you incorporate the two?
Yeah, so this is the big transformation for Box. That's why I joined Box a year ago. It's so exciting because Box customers have petabytes, terabytes, so much data. Our servers, there's tons and tons of data. And IBM did research many years ago, and they found that 90% of data in a company is unstructured data. And typically you can run regression models and do all kinds of automations and things with structured data. But up until now, with the advent of Gen AI and the way that AI is functioning, you couldn't really do things with unstructured data. You couldn't look at your decades of videos and say, what's going on in these videos? And if I wanted to share them with people, what would be the sound bites that I would want to do? Or if you have tons of images, let's say you're a packaged goods company, you have tons of images of your packaging, of the various designs that it's had. You have pictures of it actually on shelves, and you want to know what are the things that are working the best and what do they look like on the shelf, and are all of the retailers actually merchandising it the right way. Now you can actually use AI to figure that out. So it's unlocking so much information, but at the same time, you want to keep your IP as your IP. And this is where I think people get confused and stuck. And in the large enterprise, you also see a lot of stagnation in the adoption of AI, because this is where you have more governance versus a small SMB who's just hey, I'm just going to go. I don't have that much data anyway. We've seen across our customers that they use us because of our really quality, security, and governance. And now with Box, if you have your content in Box, you can then, like you said, apply like the Box LLM RAG, which we've pre-factored what that RAG would be and how you would pull content out of the images and contracts and other things. We know that there's certain kinds of content that's in the unstructured data. And so in our use of the models and the agents that we're building, we have already factored for that. So you don't have to think through that yourself. Whereas if you just go straight to a model provider and build yourself, you would have to figure all those things out. We also make sure that before anybody gets to do anything with an agent, that there is what we call secure RAG. So does this person have access to AI? Are they supposed to be using AI in the first place? Secondly, when they build an agent, do they have access to the content that they're trying to find? And do we make sure that we honor those permissions? And that is a core component of what we're doing in our system.
Radical changes in the organization of the enterprise, what people do. You mentioned the emergence of new work roles that would happen. So your personal story, you've been in the biz for a long time. You mentioned some of the previous companies you were with. How has all that experience led you to this cusp of this revolution? What has prepared you in your career, what the challenges and the successes to see what's on the horizon now and the right thing?
Yeah, I think do the right thing. You always have to trust your gut, I think, and you always have to be true. And there's always, with all these new technologies, the opportunity to try to shortcut. It always works out poorly. It's like you always open some window of a security breach or some other thing that doesn't go well if you just try to take like the fastest path. I think it's important to listen and learn from the experts, the people who are really on the forefront, and then also to understand that it's changing. When we went to e-commerce, nobody understood how that was going to work. How was it going to impact retail? What was going to happen? Huge transformation in retail. When we first had the internet, I actually started my career as a graphic designer, and I joined a company that was doing a lot of annual report design. And they said, oh, we want to have a digital division because we see that CD-ROMs is a great interactive way for people to deliver their annual report. And before they could really productize doing that, the internet came out. And so it was, oh, okay, we have to pivot. And then the internet came out and it was HTML 1.0. And what you could do with it was just super rudimentary. But then like that advanced. So we've already lived through tons of changes as it relates to technology. And I think the thing is stay curious. Try to follow people who are ahead of you and learn, poke at the technology yourself on the side, but not doing that as your main job. You know what I mean? Like don't do like your little experiments on the work that you're responsible and accountable for every single day.
Always back things up.
Yeah, like, always back things up. But you want to make sure that when you're doing something, you know that it's repeatable, you know that it can scale and that it's not just your first experiment and you're trying to deliver across like your ARR goal or something like that.
And so you mentioned some of these characteristics of action and behavior. So I'm a career coach and I work with a lot of early career people as well as mid and late career people. Early career people, obviously the anxiety of what I'm going to do, jobs are changing, I can't find a job, and how do I prepare? And then mid and late career people are trying to navigate choppy waters of AI and things. What's your advice to workers? You tell a lot about agents. How do workers prepare themselves for agents? What kind of should they be doing? What's their attitude, their mindset should be?
I would say in the last 10 years, every person early in their career in 6 months are like, I should be a manager. I should have a team. I've already done this. I'm advancing so fast. So this is getting boring. So I think it's an amazing time for early career people because you can actually have an army of agents that work for you. And that is like the same as managing people in some way.
Show up with a gang at an interview, right? Like, hey,
totally talk about it, right?
Course,
talk about your experience of building agents. Talk about your experience of automating your own life and like day to day. Like I was at a conference last week and we just had one session. How do you automate your life? And this person was talking about how they speak to their phone, they write down things, they put it all like, access to the agent. And this is my entire grocery list that I have. I take pictures of food I see out at a restaurant. And then all of a sudden they have their entire grocery list populated in the actual website of the grocery chain, whether it's Safeway or Kroger or whatever.
Their portfolio almost.
100%. And like actually what we were talking about in the conference was how do you hire today? And one of the things that people were saying is, you want to make sure you have curious people, which I've always filtered for because I think that just makes for great employees. But you want to make sure that you're asking people, how are they using AI? Because it's going to become a part of their job if it isn't already today. And you want to make sure that people aren't afraid of it, that they're willing to adapt and change and absorb. And I think that goes for your late career people and the early people. The more that you can show that you have that aptitude to learn, to grow, to be curious, to do things differently, like the better.
Yeah, yeah. Last question. You gave a great talk, obviously, good response, a lot of great content. How important are these live events in your marketing strategy and your own sense of how to get the word out? And everything's now online on Zoom and things. Why are live events like this important?
I mean, I think this goes back to going on with AI. And I think, first of all, AI is super noisy. So cutting through the noise and getting people to hear your message is challenging. So at an event, they've come to hear what you have to say. It's a very dedicated audience, which is great. I think also the human to human connection becomes even more important. And I would put that back into the career advice, like work on your emotional, interpersonal skills, because I think for a while we've been hiding behind just doing text messages and chats and this and that, whatever. But people want to work with people. People want to build businesses together with people. They want to build relationships with people. And when there's so much noise and all of this like growth of agents, the authenticity of human, I think, is really important.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It was
Yeah,
very enjoyable.
nice
Good
to
luck.
meet you.
If you have a team and you want that team to be 10x what they are, you've got to send them to events. The best event to send them is AI Marketing Summit.